Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where we talk about all things movies. Welcome especially if you're new, and welcome back if you've been here before. If you enjoy, talking about movies and movie reviews, be sure to subscribe. I usually post 2 or 3 reviews per week of the movies that are in theaters. And then once a month I do a tiered, or a movies monthly, which includes kind of a tiered list of all the movies that came out for the month. And that's what we're doing today. So this is the movies monthly for April of 2022. So with that, let's jump right on into the first section, which is a tiered list of the movies that hit theaters in April. Alright, so for this, I'm just going to go through in chronological order of when I saw the movies, and then we're just going to go through. I'll briefly share some thoughts, but I did, full reviews for each of these, so be sure to check those out if you haven't already. And this is a look back. So my thoughts may have changed since what I placed these at as far as the individual reviews at the time when they were released. But for the most part, it should probably be fairly similar. But I'll be curious to see kind of how I feel now with some time being removed from some of these movies. So first up, we started off the month with Morbius, and this film was. I was hoping it, I don't know, I'm big into superhero films, so I was hoping it'd be good. This was a new character, new sort of world that it took place in. And this one just didn't really live up to what the other superhero films out there, have set the bar for. So I think, in another age, this might have been considered a good film, but at the end of the day, this one was solidly in the meh tier for me. There just wasn't a whole lot of I don't know, it just wasn't a very compelling film in my opinion. So it wasn't that it did anything bad, it was just not very memorable, especially now that I'm a month removed. I'm trying to think of specific stuff to say about it, and I just can't think much of anything. I think I did like Jared Leto as the character, but I think the story and the movie as a whole is pretty weak. So if they do decide to make a sequel, although I would kind of be surprised given the general reception of this one, I think be interested enough to check it out because he did a good job with that character. But next up we have You Won't Be Alone, and this one was a pretty good film. I generally don't like horror films, but this had a pretty good story and had a lot of a lot of themes that it kind of delved into, and just kind of questions about life that it makes you ponder as you watch the film. So kind of all that wrapped up in a nice, neat package of a horror film that I still, at the end of the day, liked it despite it being horror. So that one goes into the liked category. If you were to correlate these kind of categories to letter grades, loved would be S tier, so that's kind of top tier. Liked is A tier. Fun is B tier, and then meh is the C and D tier. So next up we have The Contractor. I like Chris Pine as an actor, so I know I was interested to see this going into it, and I think we've seen a lot of political thrillers, so it's not reinventing the wheel, but I thought it still did a good job, and it had me interested. So I would say this was a fun film. It's kind of between fun and liked for me. I liked the soundtrack, but ultimately I'm gonna put it in the fun category. Another way to kind of look at these categories, I would, if something's in the loved tier, it's a high recommendation from me. If it's in the liked, I would recommend it. And then if it's in the fun tier, it's kind of a conditional recommendation. Like if you're looking for something to watch, and I had to kind of pick through, assuming you've watched everything else above it, I would still recommend these. If you're at home looking to stream something or going to the theater. But then Matt, I wouldn't recommend one way or the other, even if you were looking for something to see. They wouldn't quite make it into my recommendation category. Next up we have Ambulance. This was fun for probably the first half hour, but it dragged on for much longer. I think it was like a 2-hour film, and by the end it just felt like too much. So I enjoyed some of the kind of camera work that Michael Bay did with the drones on cameras and stuff like that. But there again, by the end of the film, it's like he just got a new toy and he's using it in every single scene. So it got to be a bit much. but I thought the main characters were good and well acted. So there are some redeeming qualities here, but it still was solidly in the meh category for me. Up next, we have Everything Everywhere All at Once. This was a movie that I've been looking forward to quite a bit. I think I was looking forward to Batman the most up until this point in time, and I'm really looking forward to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That's probably my most anticipated film of the year. But for this first part of the year, Everything Everywhere All at Once looked like it would be, my sort of movie, and I was really looking forward to checking it out. So I was really bummed when it didn't hit any of the theaters on the limited release. At least theaters are in my area. And so I had to wait till the wide release this month, but finally got to check it out, and this is a movie that I absolutely loved. It is definitely S tier, one of my favorites. Currently, it's only one of two movies in that tier for the year for me so far, but just a really clever script. Good action, not great action, but good action, and really well acted, and just kind of the thoughts and concepts in the movie that just get you thinking. I really like a movie that can get you thinking and doesn't fall apart when you think too much, which I don't think this one did. So I highly recommend Everything Everywhere All at Once to anybody to go see it. Next up, we have Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I saw the first one earlier this year, just at home. I wasn't all that impressed with the movie. I think it was solidly in the meh category. I do think this one was a little bit better, but ultimately it was still in the meh category for me personally. I think families might enjoy this a bit more. I'm also not a Sonic fan, so Sonic fans may enjoy it more. I can't say one way or the other. I am not familiar enough to know if Sonic fans would be disappointed if it is or isn't kind of true to the source material and what they're looking for. But for me, it's very much like a kid's film, so it just doesn't appeal to me as an adult. But that being said, if you're looking for a movie to go see with the whole family, this is probably a decent one. But for me personally, it goes into my meh tier. Next up, we have Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. This one is hard to kind of rank and judge, mainly because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and the franchise has just set such a high standard for what I expect out of these films. So it's very hard to remove that and set that aside and judge this just kind of on its own. So I try to do that to an extent, but it's still definitely in there. So this was, I don't know. It was another entry in Fantastic Beasts. I really liked the first one, but this series hasn't been nearly as strong as Harry Potter. I think for The Crimes of Grindelwald and The Secrets of Dumbledore, they don't really seem to advance the plot very much. Looking back at both of those movies, but we'll focus more on The Secrets of Dumbledore because this is the one that came out this last month. If you look at where the characters begin the film and where they end the film, there's basically no change. Yes, events happen, but they just kind of go in circles and nothing consequential really happens except for maybe one thing. So it was the production value was really good, and there's definitely elements that I like, and I thought, some of the actors do a very good job, but I think it's maybe too many characters and the story just wasn't as focused for this one, where it was still fun, but because I have such a high standard, it doesn't really get higher on my list. But it's in the fun category. I wanted to like it more than I did, just as a Harry Potter fan. So next up, we have Father Stu. This was a movie that I think I'd seen some of the trailers for. I was interested enough in seeing, and I thought it did a good job for the movie that it was going for. So I don't know that it'll appeal to everybody. It's I'm a Catholic and I saw it, so I think I get a lot more out of the movie or just understanding things. So I don't know how a non-Catholic or non-Christian would how accessible the movie is. I can't really guess at that because I understood kind of the context of things going into the movie and everything that's going on. So I thought this was a good film. I thought Mark Wahlberg did a really good job of the character. I didn't know going into it, but I've learned since then that he poured a lot of money into this, and this was definitely a kind of dream project for him, or a passion project rather. So I think it was good to see. I'm glad that he got the chance to make this movie. I thought it was done well enough, but it's not one that I would like straight up recommend. So that's why I wouldn't put it quite in my liked category. But it's in the fun category or like decent. So like if somebody was looking for something to go see and hadn't seen it yet, I'd recommend it. I think it's worth a watch. But I wouldn't necessarily just like recommend it off the top of my head to somebody if we were talking about movie recommendations. Next up, we have Aline. This is, or Aline, I think is how it's pronounced. Yeah. So this is a movie kind of inspired by the life of Celine Dion. I think it follows, like, it takes a lot from the true story, even though it says it's a work of fiction. So I think it was, yeah, I don't think they took very many liberties, though, from what I understand. It was pretty true to the source material. And yeah, this was well done for a biopic, but it didn't really bring anything new to the table. And ultimately, I thought it was a fun enough movie, not like super well done. And the main reason I think was why I wasn't as interested in it was because the main character doesn't really have any flaws. Like she's like difficult circumstances are thrown at her, and she deals with them like each of them very very well. But because of that, because she doesn't really have any like self-imposed challenges, I guess. She just didn't seem as interesting of a character as she maybe could have been. So this one though goes in I'd say this is kind of the lower end of the fun tier. It's, yeah, for me it was interesting to kind of learn about Celine Dion. I know, like, I'm aware of her, but I wasn't aware of her life, so I thought that was interesting. Next up, we have Duel. This is a movie starring Karen Gillan. She is playing a character who learns that she's going to die from a terminal illness, so she goes through the process of cloning herself, so her loved ones can have that clone after she's gone, but then she ends up healing or recovering from her sickness and survives. So they set up this duel between her and her clone to basically determine who's going to live after that, because that's how the rules work. So to kind of summarize my thoughts on this movie, I liked it. There's a lot of dark humor in it, which you don't get in very many movies. So that was nice to see, and something that I enjoyed quite a bit. And it was just kind of a very, I don't know, the pacing was good, and it was an engaging story. It was, one that I hadn't really seen before. So I liked it a lot. I recommend it. Maybe not if dark comedy is not your thing at all, but if it is, then I enjoyed it quite a bit. Next up, we have The Northman. This was a movie that I was also looking forward to quite a bit. It just looked like it was, from the trailers, it looked like it was a very well-made movie, and definitely had me excited to go see it, being marketed kind of as this, Norse version of Gladiator, which I think is an oversimplification, but it is kind of accurate. It's basically a sort of Shakespearean epic revenge tale that focuses on this Viking. So the kind of to sum up my thoughts on it, I did really like this film. There's a lot of things that it does well. I think the second act drags just a little bit, so that's what keeps it out of being in my loved category. I did absolutely like the film though, and I definitely recommend anybody to go see it. But it's very, very well shot and very well acted, and a very engaging story. So just good all around. Next up, we have The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. This is, I've enjoyed the Nicolas Cage movies that I've seen. I haven't seen probably as many as most people. Like, I think there's a lot of them that I haven't seen. But I do enjoy his work. I also enjoy Pedro Pascal. So I was curious to check out this movie. And at the end of the day, this is one that I thought was fun. I think it could have been a lot better, but I don't know. Trying to remember what exactly I like, because yeah, it was a fun time. It was definitely comedic throughout. I think the direction that some of the story goes, especially in the second half of the film, just kind of fell a little flat for me. So that was the main thing. But I think if you're looking for something to go see and looking for more of a comedy and like an adult comedy, one that's not just like a family movie like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, then this is probably one for you to go see. Next up, we have The Bad Guys. This is, the newest DreamWorks movie. I thought the animation for this was really good, but at the end of the day, it felt like a kind of wannabe Zootopia, sort of. Like, it's dealing with a lot of similar themes as Zootopia, and I felt like Zootopia just did a lot of them better. So that took me out of the movie completely and had me just walking out feeling kind of meh about the film. Even though there's like a lot of good stuff there, I think if Zootopia didn't exist, I would potentially, like, I think this could be in the fun or the liked category. So it's definitely a good family film, but for me personally, I just didn't really enjoy it, even though there was a lot of good stuff in it. Next up, we have Memory. This is a new action film starring Liam Neeson. He's done quite a few of these in recent years. Looking back, it wasn't quite as many as I thought. I thought it was probably like 10 of them, but I think it's maybe only like 5. But this one, of the ones I've seen, this one seems a little bit more interesting of a premise. He's playing a contract killer who's starting to develop dementia. So the premise was engaging. I was interested throughout the film, certainly more than like his other film this year, Blacklight. So it was one that was, I thought, fun enough. I didn't really care for any of the characters particularly, but I thought they were realistic depictions of what they would be doing for like those sort of people in real life. But yeah, it's one that I put in the fun category. It's kind of between fun and meh. So I think if you're looking for an action movie, that could do it. I thought The Contractor was a bit better though, and those kind of fill similar genres if you're looking for something to see. But it was still, I thought, worth the watch enough. And then next up we have Firebird. This is a film that I think I wasn't too aware of going into it, but I'd seen a trailer and it looked like it could be interesting. I forget if I put this in the A or the B tier. I think I put it in the B tier. So I think it could potentially be A tier or in my liked category. I think I put it in the fun category though, just because I don't know. I think like it does a good job across the board, but there's nothing that absolutely stood out about it. I feel like part of me wants to put it in the liked category because the fun category is just getting overfilled. But I think if you're looking for, a romantic drama and kind of a period piece that takes place about 50 years ago, the characters are very interesting, the story is very compelling, and I thought it was an interesting movie to go see. And then last up we have Hatching. This is a horror film. I think I just saw it yesterday, and I did not care for this movie. This is definitely in the meh category. I don't really have a bad category, but if I did, it's solidly at the bottom of the meh category. Like, I didn't like this movie. Whereas the other ones in the meh category, I neither liked nor disliked. Like, they were fine. But Hatching was, for me, very, very slow, uninteresting, and that it didn't help that on top of that it was a horror film, which the elements of horror just don't really do much for me. Like, I don't like being scared. I don't really like grotesque stuff. So that compounded with it not really being an interesting story or interesting characters, it was a long hour-and-a-half film. So I don't recommend checking that out. I recommend not checking it out. Like, it's not very often that I have a recommendation to not go see a movie. I mean, with all respect to the people that made it, it's still a piece of art. It's still a film. So if you are, like, for that, it's maybe worth seeing. But it's one that I felt, for me, it would have been time better spent doing other stuff. So yeah, that does it for the movies that I saw in theaters as far as a tier list. We got, one S tier this month, which is the same as last month, and then a handful of ones that I liked. And then a lot of them are in the kind of the fun category. Like, they're good enough films, but not good films. And then a few in the meh category. So I saw a lot more movies this month. I think we had one extra weekend in April as opposed to March. So there was, I think, 5 weekends in April, which gives you, that's just another set of movies to go see. And then it seemed like there were always like 3 movies playing every week, as opposed to March I only saw 8 movies in theaters. So it was definitely a lot more busy of a month, and kind of because of that, going on into the next category for our movies monthly, for the stuff that I watched at home, it was a lot less this month. So I only finished 1 season of TV, and that was the 4th season of Billions, which is a really good show. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. My typical policy is to only watch a season of something at a time and then kind of switch to something else. It just makes them last a little bit longer, and I think they don't. They're a little bit more memorable, and they don't just kind of fade into a blur, which is what happens if you binge, multiple seasons at a time. So season 4 is pretty good, though. Probably not my favorite season, but it's still interesting, and they're taking the show... Like, the show doesn't feel repetitive. I like how each season kind of reinvents the wheel, or it takes a different approach to the story, a different direction, so that leaves it, feeling fresh. And this is one that I liked. I don't know... It's between liked and loved for me for this show. It's very high on my liked list, but it's... Yeah, I think I have to wait till the end of the series to see if it'll go down as one of my favorite shows and one that I loved. Otherwise, for watching stuff at home, technically these next 2 movies I didn't watch at home. I watched them on the plane because I did some traveling this last month. But I watched A Wrinkle in Time for the first time and Moonlight. And so A Wrinkle in Time, that just wasn't a very interesting movie for me personally. It was solidly in the meh category. I will say, though, I was very tired when I watched it. I don't think that would change my ranking of it, but I will note that it was at the end of a very long day, and yeah, but it was a little hard to stay awake through the film. But Moonlight, I thought I liked Moonlight. I thought it was a very good movie. I didn't like it as much as La La Land, which it beat out for Best Picture for the year that it was released, but I can see why it won Best Picture. I just think La La Land was a better film. So those were the new things I watched this month. The only 2 things that I rewatched at home were Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War, or reverse that order. I actually watched those back to back. I had, a Sunday evening where I had enough time to get in 2 movies. So I think it had been a couple of years since I've watched those. So it was nice to rewatch those. Those are definitely some of my favorite movies of all time. Close. I think definitely top 5. I think probably top 2 or 3 for like movies of all time on my list. So it was nice to have a chance to watch those. But otherwise, yeah, it was a busy month with how many movies I saw in theaters, and I just didn't have much time for other stuff at home. But let me know, what TV or movies you've seen at home this last month. Which ones are you rewatching? I know we're still kind of in an era where people are spending some more time at home, although it feels like stuff is getting back to normal, or a relative normal anyway. But yeah, I'd love to hear, what are you watching? What are you watching? What are your recommendations? I'm always open for new shows or new movies. I'm open to get, I think this next month will be a bit more. I'm staying current on like Moon Knight and then a couple other network shows like A Million Little Things and The Good Doctor, but those just have weekly drops for episodes, so I'll review those and talk to them on the month that they actually end. But so I am watching a few other things, but nothing that I finished within this month. And then the last category for our Movies Monthly, I just kind of go through some of the soundtracks that I listened to throughout the month. And I listened to most of the soundtracks of the movies that I saw, at least any of them that I can get on Amazon Music. And these are the ones that I listened to, and I enjoyed all of them. None of them stuck out as like my favorite soundtrack, but all of these I'd say are good for soundtracks and ones that I'd recommend if you're into soundtracks. So that includes The Contractor, Morbius, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think that one is probably the most unique of these. But and then Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Secrets of Dumbledore. I really liked. I think it continued what the franchise is doing as far as style of music. I do like James Newton Howard quite a bit, and I think he continues to do a good job with these films. And then we've got The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Ambulance, and The Northman. So all these I think were like they were good. I definitely snagged a couple songs from at least a couple songs from each of these for my personal soundtrack playlist. So as I go through and listen to stuff, I'll just mark it for that list. And yeah, each of these definitely had some had more than others, but yeah, if you've listened to some new soundtracks recently, I'd love to hear what you're listening to. If you want to drop comment down below just to share what you've been listening to lately, or kind of what are some more of your more favorite soundtracks, I'd love to hear about it. But yeah, with that wraps up our Movies Monthly for the month of April 2022. If if you have a favorite movie from the month, maybe for like I'll be happy to. I'd love to hear your whole ranking if you have a ranking of what you saw in theaters. But if you just want to even drop, what was your favorite movie in the month of April? Mine was Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed this Movies Monthly, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for the month of May. We've got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness coming out in less than a week, so I'm super excited for that. And then a variety of other stuff coming out this month. I think at the end of the month we get Top Gun Maverick. That's the other one that's coming to mind. So there again, if you've got anything that you're particularly looking forward to, I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.